Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelova, and this is Speedplay Papal Italy number 9. Once again, we are at peace. Our armies are roving out of Spain back to positions. All of China has broken up. The main area is western, the rest are not. We're going to move our forces against the Moroccans and continue to just eat all of the uncivilized or slightly civilized countries around us to just sort of get all of these free territories while they're available. We're probably going to spread into the Arabian Peninsula, taking over all of the states there. The North Germans just declared on the French, so they're probably both going to be bogged down, and we can join the International Committee. So that's very nice. Or the Olympic Committee and all of that. We can declare war on Morocco, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We also built up a few more battleships, and we're going to build just a series of additional armies. The battleships are going to be so that we won't have to worry about fighting the UK or the United States, and the armies are just because armies are always nice to have. As always, we're going to leave a few additional groups so that we can fill out any armies that aren't completely completed, and we will justify a war against probably Oman, while also... Okay, and the Austrians just declared on the North Germans, so they are now fighting a two-front war. The war against Morocco is going just as well as we could expect, as they are uncivilized and thus don't have any army techs or anything along those lines. So with that all said and done, we continue to just split armies apart. We can not add a war goal, we don't have enough jingoism, however we just get an event for that, so we add another war goal against them, just so that the borders will look nice once this war is done, but in around 5 years we'll just justify another war and hopefully annex them entirely. So there we go, it looks a little nicer, and now we're going to start focusing our armies against the Ottomans. We won't be able to declare war on them for another 6 or so months, but then the truce will end and we'll be able to move our forces against them and actually attack. So between now and then we're going to attack Oman, bring all of our forces to the border of the Ottoman Empire, and hopefully we'll just mark out what we're hoping to get by the end of this campaign. Ideally, now here's the thing, if we don't annex the Ottomans, we'll only be able to get this portion of land. It's still a lot, however they will have one naval base in the Mediterranean, so it won't be our lake. Meanwhile, the Austrians have taken back Bohemia, so that's very nice for them, and a terrible setback for the North Germans. However, they'll probably defeat the French and get all the territories they need to form Germany. We continue to build up armies, and in just a little while we will be able to annex Oman. We also now have the ability to upgrade our naval bases, so eventually, in around 5 years once they unlock, we'll be able to research and hopefully unlock dreadnoughts, which are basically just the end-game super ship. And we'll also declare on Hejaz. If we time this right, we will annex Hejaz just in time to declare on the Ottomans, and we'll just roll our armies through them into the Ottomans and just overwhelm them. Now that's the ultimate goal. We need to be essentially in constant wars against the Ottomans, as in order to achieve our goals for this game, we're essentially going to have to annex them, or at least cause them just irreparable harm. It's a bit terrible for the Ottomans, however, they are the sick man of Europe, so we'll attempt to overthrow them. The US just annexed Hawaii, so that is a thing. They've already won their civil war, and they're probably doing very well with all of the immigrants from the wars we've been fighting. We, however, do get a colonial incident, which means a casus belli on the French. This is great news, as we would have otherwise had to wait to fabricate a claim on the French. They don't have any significant allies, so we're just going to declare war on their for their one bit in Middle Africa. Interestingly enough, they made a state out of Algiers, and we just send our armies directly into France. The UK declares war on us at this point. We go ahead and build the Suez Canal, so our 81 ships around the Red Sea area can just go straight to the Mediterranean, and we declare war on the Ottomans. So, much like a few episodes ago, as soon as it became available, as soon as we were at peace with everybody, without a truce, they declared war on us. The British seem to be very ready to just declare these wars of containment, which is a bit worrying. We also begin to fabricate a claim on Najd, as they are close to westernizing and we want to be able to fully annex them. Now, this is different than the last war in a few ways. For one, none of the German states are in it against us, so that is great news. The French are still fighting the North Germans, so their forces will be largely occupied, and we're able to just siege their countryside. The Ottomans never really were that much of a problem, and interestingly enough, the British don't have very much of a presence in Africa. So that is great news. We might just be able to win out loud on all fronts without even so much as any real combat. We're eventually going to want to take our entire navy and try to block the, basically block the English Channel so we can invade the UK. However, for the moment, we're just going to keep them on the Dardanelles so that we can cross into Anatolia from Northern Europe, or from the Balkans. At any rate, our armies are basically just meeting success everywhere. We're fighting a few pitched battles against the Ottomans, however, those are the only battles we're fighting at all, really, which is incredibly different from the last war. Now, the French do actually fight us, and it looks as though, while they do have numbers, we have just a slew of armies nearby. The Ottomans are being a bit difficult simply because we don't have full lines of control, so we have to keep going back to defeat straggling armies that just show up. Ultimately, though, it is a rather straightforward fight. The British aren't really doing anything, which means we're not able to get any war score or lose any war score. So ultimately, that's essentially just a slightly militarized peace. And other than that, we're making progress. And it's really just going to be us moving forward on a vast quantity of fronts. We get the secret police, which is amazing. They are the greatest thing a country can get, as now we have 25% chance less of dealing with any rebellion. I noticed we do have a Jacobin rebel, which broke off from one of our armies. That is a bit worrying that part of our army rebelled, as that's really the only thing that could do us any real harm, and that's mainly just because we would have to rebuild all the elements that did defect, and also we would have to reconstruct all the armies to get them back up to full strength. So hopefully our army will stop rebelling. We're paying our soldiers good wages, so I'm surprised that that one group actually did. An interesting thing, though, that was a Jacobin rebellion, and a Jacobin rebellion of 3,000 men is really just amazing news. Brazil declared war on Gran Colombia, which is interesting because that means Gran Colombia exists. And while there are a few battles against the French, ultimately the wars have all been won in a technical sense. We've won them in the sense that, we're winning. We don't have the ability to add war goals just yet, so we are just constantly election spamming. We're also we just declared on Niger, and we're fabricating a claim on Orange, which is, other than Egypt and Morocco, the last state that we need in Africa from a non-great power, or Portugal or whatever, the non-imperial territory in Africa. We open up a gap in our lines in France so that the British can land. That way we'll hopefully encourage them to attack us at least somewhat, so that we'll actually be able to get enough war score to make peace. Now, the North Germans did peace out with the French, so we can expect whatever French armies were in North Germany to trickle into our lands, although I'm not concerned by that, as they did lose the war, so they couldn't have had very many forces there at all. We do, however, have to fight the occasional battle against French troops. Everywhere else is doing fine. We bring an army down from our massive European stacks to rejoin, and we lose a lot of men in the initial days of that fighting. However, by the end, it turns around and starts working a lot in our favor. It wasn't ideal for a moment, however, overall, we do end up defeating the Ottomans, and the amount of losses we took in the initial days of combat are why I don't want to just cross over and attack the British while they had an army stationed there. Hopefully, we will get a jingoist event. Now, ideally, we won't get a jingoist event until we win a few battles against the British. That way we'll be able to add war goals against them as well. We annex Niger so we can bring those armies up against the Ottomans. And in a few days, well, not a few days, in about a year or two, we should hopefully have the Ottomans fully occupied. The French are fully occupied. We'll hopefully get British Africa occupied. And once we've taken care of all the theaters, we can begin the process of preparing to fight the British in their country. Now, unfortunately, we are not getting any jingoist events yet, so we'll probably have to wait until the next election. And although that is a bit of a bummer, the main issue is that the British have finally decided to cross over, and they did so en masse. Now, I'm confident we will be able to pull this into a victory. However, we're definitely going to have to pull troops from that French battle in Paris. That's just something we'll have to abandon. And when we come back, we will deal with that massive British army. We lost 62,000 men against the Turks, who lost 180,000. And the French have lost 120,000 to our 57. Thank you very much for watching. When we get back, we will have to fight that massive British army.